The viewing. The body arrived on a Tuesday. State ME delivery, nothing unusual. John Doe, gunshot wound to the face, found in an alley behind a dry cleaners on Park Avenue. No identification, no witnesses, no leads. The county was paying for cremation, which meant the county was paying me $800 for basic services. No frills, no fuss. I signed for the delivery, wheeled the gurney into the prep room, and unzipped the bag. The face was gone. That's what a close-range handgun blast does. Removes everything that makes a person recognizable. The jaw was shattered. The nose was pulp. The eyes were, well, I'd seen worse, but not by much. But the hair was right. Dark brown, graying at the temples, the same pattern I saw in the mirror every morning. The ears were right too, slightly too large, with attached lobes that my mother used to say were a sign of good luck. I almost laughed, almost wrote it off as one of those strange coincidences that happen in this business. You see enough bodies, you start seeing familiar faces everywhere. The mind playing tricks. Then I looked at the chin. Just below the jawline, curving like a crescent moon, was a scar, white and raised, the kind you get when you need stitches but don't get them. I touched my own chin without thinking, felt the ridge of the tissue beneath my fingers. Bobby Marks threw that rock when I was 9 years old. I still remember the blood running down my neck, my mother pressing a dish towel against my wound, my father saying stitches were too expensive, it would heal fine on its own. I pulled back the sheet. The body was male, mid-50s, soft around the middle, the way men get when they stop caring. There was a small paunch, not quite a gut, and the skin had the grayish pallor of someone who spent too much time indoors. And there, just to the left of the navel, were 3 moles, small, dark, arranged in a perfect triangle. I stepped back from the table. My hand went to my own stomach. I didn't need to look. I'd had those moles my whole life, had memorized their position the way you memorize furniture in your childhood home. "Justin," Sheila's voice came from the doorway. I turned, and she was standing there with her morning coffee, her eyes slightly too bright, the way they always were after her first line of the day. "New arrival?" "Yeah." My voice sounded strange to me, far away. John Doe, gunshot to the face. She walked over, looked at the body with the clinical detachment of someone who'd been doing this for 30 years. "Messy. Family?" "No family. County cremation." "Easy money." She took a sip of her coffee. "I'll do the prep work this afternoon. You look pale. You should eat something." She left. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the body on the table, at the scar on its chin, at the moles on its stomach, at the ruin of its face, which might have been mine. I called the medical examiner's office that afternoon. "The John Doe from Park Avenue," I said. "The gunshot victim. I was wondering if I could get a copy of the police report." There was a pause on the other end. "Why?" "Professional interest." I tried to make my voice casual. "Might help me with the reconstruction. Family might turn up, want an open casket." It was a weak excuse, and we both knew it. But funeral directors ask for stranger things, and the ME's office had worked with me for 20 years. They sent the file over within the hour. I read it at my desk while Sheila worked on the body in the other room. I could hear her humming something, the way she always did when she was applying makeup to the dead. The report was thin. John Doe, approximately 50 to 60 years old, found at 3:47 a.m. by a sanitation worker taking a shortcut through the alley behind Park Avenue dry cleaners. Single gunshot wound to the face at close range. No shell casings recovered. No witnesses. No identification on the body. No wallet, no phone, no keys. Just a man in unremarkable clothes, dead in an unremarkable alley. The detectives had canvassed the area. The dry cleaner's owner said he'd closed up at 6 p.m. and hadn't seen anything unusual. The neighboring businesses were closed at night. The alley was a dead end, used mostly for dumpsters and deliveries. Case status, open. No suspects, no leads. I stared at the photograph attached to the report. It showed the alley, narrow, dim, lined with dumpsters. At the far end was a door, painted the same gray as the building, almost invisible unless you were looking at it. I thought about the scar on the body's chin. I thought about the moles on its stomach. I thought about my own face, still attached, still recognizable. What would I have been doing in that alley at 3:47 in the morning? The viewing was scheduled for Thursday. County cremations don't usually get viewings, but the detectives wanted one. Sometimes killers show up to see their handiwork. It was a long shot, but long shots are all you have when you've got no witnesses and no leads. Sheila had done good work. She couldn't fix the face. Nobody could fix that face. But she'd cleaned him up, dressed him in a donated suit, arranged him in the casket so the damage was minimized. From certain angles and certain light, you could almost imagine he was sleeping. I stood at the back of the room and watched who came in. Detective Morrison arrived first, a heavy-set man with tired eyes who'd been working homicides longer than I'd been burying people. His partner, Detective Wallace, followed a few minutes later, younger, sharper, still believing she could solve every case if she worked hard enough. Then came the regulars. Every funeral home has them. People who read the obituaries like the morning news, who show up to services for strangers, who sit in the back row and weep for people they've never met. Ours were Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, a retired couple who'd been attending viewings at Brothers' funeral home for as long as I could remember. "Such a tragedy," Mrs. Patterson said, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. "So young." He wasn't young. He was my age, my exact age, if the Emmy's estimate was right. "Did you know him?" I asked. "No, dear. But that doesn't matter, does it? Everyone deserves to be mourned." I watched her shuffle toward the casket, her husband's hand on her arm. They stood there for a moment, heads bowed, lips moving in what might have been prayer. The detectives hung back, scanning the room, looking for anyone who didn't belong. But there was no one. Just the Pattersons, a few staff members, and me. Detective Morrison drifted over to where I stood. "Hell of a thing," he said. "No ID, no family, no nothing. Like the guy didn't exist." "Any leads?" "Nothing solid. Could have been a robbery gone wrong. Could have been targeted. Could have been wrong place, wrong time," he shrugged. "We'll keep digging, but honestly, these cases go cold more often than not." I nodded, hesitated, then, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you saw the body, did you notice anything familiar about it?" Morrison frowned. "Familiar how?" "I don't know. The build, the hair, anything." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at the casket, at the ruined face barely visible among the silk lining. "Now that you mention it," he said slowly, "there is something. The chin. That scar." He glanced back at me. "You've got one just like it." "I know. Weird coincidence." He was smiling now, but there was something uncertain behind it. "You're not going to tell me you think that's you in there, are you?" "No, of course not." "Good, because that would be crazy." He laughed, and Wallace laughed with him, but their eyes kept drifting back to my face, comparing, cataloging. "The alley where he was found," I said, "behind the dry cleaners. Did you notice anything unusual? Anything that didn't make the report?" Morrison's smile faded. "Like what?" "I don't know, anything." He exchanged a look with Wallace, the kind of look cops give each other when a civilian starts asking too many questions. "There was a door," Wallace said finally, "at the back of the alley, leads into the building. We checked it, locked, no signs of forced entry. The dry cleaner says it's just storage, old machines, supplies, nothing interesting. But nothing. It's just a door." She was studying me now, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Why the interest, Mr. Brothers?" This is a county cremation, not exactly the kind of case that requires a funeral director's attention. Professional courtesy, I said. That's all. She didn't believe me. Neither did Morrison. But they left anyway, after the Pattersons had said their goodbyes and the room had emptied out. They had other cases, other bodies, other deaths that might actually be solved. I stayed behind, stood over the casket, and looked down at the face that wasn't a face anymore. "Who are you?" I whispered. The body didn't answer, but the question wouldn't let me go. "You're obsessing over nothing." Sheila was cutting lines on the bathroom counter, her movements precise and practiced. It was Thursday night, which meant it was sex night, which meant she would do a bump or two first to make herself interested. "I'm not obsessing." "You have been staring at that police report for 3 days." She rolled up a 20, leaned down, inhaled sharply. "It's a John Doe. They're all tragic. If you got invested in every one, you'd lose your mind." "He has my scars, Sheila, my moles, my... Lots of people have scars." She wiped her nose, checked her reflection in the mirror. "Lots of people have moles. It's a coincidence, that's all." "What if it's not?" She turned to look at me, and for a moment I saw something in her eyes. Not concern exactly, more like irritation. The way you'd look at a dog that won't stop barking. "Then what? What are you suggesting? That's you in the casket? That you're somehow dead and alive at the same time?" She laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You deal with bodies all day, Justin. Don't let them get in your head." She walked past me toward the bedroom, unbuttoning her blouse as she went. "Come on," she said over her shoulder. "Let's get this over with." I followed her. We did what we always did on Thursday nights. Mechanical, efficient, more like a business transaction than anything resembling intimacy. Afterward, she fell asleep within minutes, her breathing slow and even. I lay in the dark and thought about the door at the back of the alley, about what Detective Wallace had said. Just storage, old machines, supplies, nothing interesting. But she hesitated before she said it, just for a second, like there was something she wasn't telling me. I thought about the body on my table, the body that would be ash by tomorrow afternoon. I thought about the scar, the moles, the hair and the ears and the soft paunch around the middle. I thought about the door. The alley was darker than I expected. I'd driven past Park Avenue dry cleaners 100 times without really seeing it. One of those small businesses that exist on the edge of awareness, always there but never noticed. The kind of place that could disappear tomorrow and you wouldn't realize it was gone until you needed your shirts pressed. The alley ran along the side of the building, narrow and cluttered with dumpsters. A single streetlight at the entrance cast everything beyond in shadow. I walked slowly, my footsteps echoing off the brick walls, and told myself I was just looking, just satisfying a curiosity, just putting the question to rest so I could move on. The door was at the back, exactly where the report said it would be. Gray metal, no handle on the outside, the kind of door that's meant to be opened from within. It was closed, but there was light around the edges, red light seeping through the cracks like something bleeding. I stood there for a long moment. The rational part of my brain was screaming at me to leave, to go home, to forget about John Doe and his familiar scar and his identical moles. This wasn't my business. This wasn't my case. This wasn't... The door swung open. The red light spilled out, and I could see what was inside. Tables covered with equipment, tubes and beakers and burners, the acrid smell of chemicals that didn't belong in a dry cleaner's storage room. A meth lab, right here, in the middle of downtown, hidden behind a business that probably existed only as a front. I should have run. I didn't. Something held me there. Curiosity, maybe, or fate, or the simple, inescapable pull of a question that demanded an answer. I leaned forward, just slightly, trying to see more. I was yanked backward, off my feet, the world spinning around me. I hit the ground hard, the breath driven from my lungs, and when I looked up, there was a man standing over me, young, wiry, with the hollow eyes of someone who'd been sampling his own product. "The fuck you looking at?" "Nothing. I didn't. You saw!" He was reaching for something at his waist. A gun. Small, black, the kind you can buy on any corner if you know the right people. "You fucking saw!" "Please, I won't tell anyone. I didn't see anything. He raised his gun. I thought about Sheila asleep in our bed. I thought about the body on my table, the one that looked so much like me. I thought about all the questions I'd asked and all the answers I'd never get. I thought about the scar under my chin and the 3 moles on my stomach and the life I'd lived that had led me to this alley, this moment, this end. The muzzle flash was the last thing I saw. The body arrived on a Tuesday. State ME delivery, nothing unusual. John Doe, gunshot wound to the face, found in an alley behind a dry cleaner's on Park Avenue. No identification, no witnesses, no leads. The county was paying for cremation, which meant the county was paying me $800 for basic services. No frills, no fuss. I signed for the delivery, wheeled the gurney into the prep room, and unzipped the bag. The face was gone. That's what a close-range handgun blast does. Removes everything that makes a person recognizable. The jaw was shattered, the nose was pulp, the eyes were, well, I'd seen worse, but not by much. But the hair was right. Dark brown, graying at the temples, the same pattern I saw in the mirror every morning. I touched my chin, felt the scar, and somewhere, in a place I couldn't quite reach, something whispered that I'd done this before.